Hey, and welcome back. So you may have saw at WW22, Apple, gave us some new ways to handle navigation in SwiftUI. And, because they're always looking out for us and care about how SwiftUI is the future of building iOS applications, navigation is something that is always tricky to handle. And it gets even trickier when dealing with deep links from either a link or push notifications or maybe even multi-platform support. And you know how I like to look after you because we're all pretty much, like family now. I feel like we're all boys and girls, in this together.
Family, family, family.
But in this video, we're going to be looking specifically at building this that you can see on the screen here. And this is just starting at the base to understand how NavigationStack works at its core and things you should look out for when working with it. And this video here is the first of a bunch of videos I'm going to be releasing in a course all about the new iOS 16 APIs available in SwiftUI for navigation. So by the end of this video, you should understand how to update your existing apps to use the new NavigationStack APIs alongside with Navigation Link as well. And if you want to follow along, I actually do have the starter files in the description box you can get from my GitHub page too. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for updates so you don't miss any videos within this course. And also as well, let's get straight into it. So, the problem, I'm learning French, man. Shout out to Duolingo. I'm going places. One day, I'll do an entire video in French, but that's not the day today. But back on course. So, why do people have beef with NavigationView anyways? Well, mainly because it's really limited when it comes to handling complex navigation. And what do I mean by this? Well, let's say you need to push to just a single screen. You have a simple app. There's no issues with that. It's fine. But what about if I wanted to go 2 screens deep and then have the ability to go to a specific screen within the stack? That's where things get a bit tricky. And also as well, I've worked with NavigationView and it's a bit flaky to say the least. So in the next chapter, we're actually going to look at migrating an existing project, like I said before, which is you can get on GitHub and see how it makes our lives easier. So let's do that now. All right, sweet. So like I said before, I just want to kind of go over the project briefly to just show you what I've got here in the starter files. So nothing too crazy. This is just like a simple store. I feel like if you know me by now, yeah, you know I like food. So this is food basically within this app. So it's just a store where you can just order items. So you can see we can just click into an item and go to view the detail and whatnot. Nothing too crazy. We just have a list and a navigation view and we just push to the detail view. And within the list, we have, some components for laying this out. So you can check this out if you want to. There's not really too much going on here. But what we are going to do is actually start to refactor this now to use the new APIs available to us in iOS 16. So as you can see here, we actually currently have a navigation view. And what we want to do is actually refactor this to use a navigation stack instead. And if we actually go into the navigation view, API documentation here, you'll see here that there's actually a message from Apple telling us that we should actually, migrate from using this and start to use Navigation Stack or Navigation Split View instead, which we'll get onto within these videos. And if you want to learn more about Navigation View and also as well this Navigation Link, I do have videos on this on my channel that you can check out. So if we just look at this here on the iPhone and we just replace this from a Navigation View to a Navigation Stat View, you'll see that when we update it, nothing has actually changed at all. It looks the exact same and it works the exact same as well. So nothing here is too different. And if we was to just go onto an iPad, for example, this time, so I'm just going to choose a random iPad from the drop down, you'll see that on iPad as well, nothing looks too different. So looking at this, what has actually changed at all? Well, the thing that's actually changed here is our navigation link within our code. So let's just go back to our iPhone in the preview. And what I want to do now is I just want to go to the Apple documentation to actually show you what has changed with Navigation Link. So let's do that now. And what's actually changed here is that we actually have some new overloads that essentially allow us to pass in a title, so a string, or even give it its own custom view and bind it to some kind of value. So this might not seem like a lot to you right now, but you'll see how this comes into play when we actually talk about navigation destination. So let's see how we can actually use these new initializers. Rather than us having this navigation link here that we have, what we're going to do is actually update this to the new, APIs available to us. So if we just remove this, what I'm going to do is just create a bit more space. And if I just type out navigation link and then value, you'll see these two initializers that are new. Now, the one I want to use for this example, first of all, is the one where you have a title key and a value. So we're just going to select this one. And for the title key, what we're going to do is set the food title. And then for the value here, we're just going to pass it in the food dot name. Now, it did say before there that it needs some kind of hashable value, and I'll get onto that in a second in terms of explaining what that actually means. But for now, you can see here that we have a menu with just our title and our food name. And when I actually try and tap on an item within this list, nothing happens. So what's actually going on here? Well, essentially what we're saying here within this code for this navigation link is I want you to display the title, you know, within a navigation link. But whenever someone taps on this value, I want you to send that somewhere to navigate to. The problem is that somewhere to navigate to, we've not actually implemented that code here at all. And what we need to do now when we're working with NavigationStack and we want to like navigate somewhere using this new API is we need to actually use the navigation destination for to tell it where to go to. So on our list here below our navigation title, we're just going to type dot navigation, not math, navigation destination for here. And there's two options here. We have a Boolean option where you can control it using a Boolean, but what we want is this one here, where we essentially say the hashable type that we want it to listen to, and the destination is the view that we want it to push to. So let's do this here. Now, when you're working with this navigation destination for, the type here that you define, the hashable type, needs to match the type that you define in the value. So if I just go into the model for food, the name property here is actually a string. So we need the navigation destination for here to also be a string as well. So we're going to say string dot self. And then the destination for is here is going to be the value that we pass through, which is going to be our food name. So we're just going to say here, food name, for example. And then within here, we can now specify the view that we want to push to. Now, I'm just simply going to push to a text view. So some text on the screen that displays the food name that we're passing through the value here. So let's do that now. So now if we try and tap on one of our items, you'll see that actually pushes through to the screen and displays the food name that we define within our model. And just to show you what that looks like, on the SwiftUI preview, we can actually pin this so we can still keep the canvas here. So I'm just going to pin this. And if we go to our model, food, where I defined all the dummy data, you'll see that the title for, well, the name for burrito is this emoji here. So when we tap on it, we're seeing this emoji. Cool. So that's how the navigation destination works with navigation link now. So what I want to do now is actually change this from name to price. And if we look at our model, price is actually not a string, it's actually a decimal. So now the type is completely different. So if I actually go back here, and if I now try and tap on this view, you'll see that it's not working anymore again. And that's because the type here decimal doesn't match the type here string. So in order to fix this, what we'd have to do again is change this from string to decimal. And now we could change this to food price. And then what we can do in here is now just pass in the food price and then use the formatter to just format this as the currency. So the code here I'm just going to use is GBP. But I can't say that, GBP. So in Great British Pounds. So now if we tap on this, you'll now see that we're able to see our food price. So I hope the main takeaway you're seeing from this when you want to, you know, just navigate to screens very simply with like not a lot of code is that the types have to match when you're passing them through with the value. So you saw before in the previous example that it wasn't just like a simple list here. You know, we had a lot more going on with like emojis and all that kind of stuff. Right now, this is quite bare bones and simple. So how would we do this if we wanted to work with like, you know, go into a screen with our own custom data and not the built-in Swift data types like string, int, boolean? What about if I want to pass through our food struct that we've defined here so I can access this within navigation destination 4? So that's what we're going to look into now. So right now we have a navigation link where we just pass in the title to display on the screen. What about if instead of that, I want to use my own custom view? Well, if we just remove this and we just type out navigation link value, you'll see that although we do have a version where you can pass in a string for the title, there's also another version in here where we can actually pass in a label, and the label allows us to define our own custom view as well. Now for this value, what we want to do in here is we don't want to pass in just like a string or, you know, the price as a decimal. We want to pass in here the actual entire food object. So let's do that here now. And for our label, we want to use our food item view that we had there before. So let's do that. So food item view, and then pass in our food like so. So if we build this, we should get a build error, and this makes complete sense. And if we actually look at what the build error is telling us, it's saying that it needs to have it where food conforms to hashable. Because right now, if we look at our food model, it's just identifiable. It doesn't conform to the hashable protocol. Now, you may be wondering and looking at me thinking, bro, what does hashable even mean? Well, the simplest way to think about hashable is it's basically like a tag, right? So each item has its own unique identifier. So by using this hashable protocol, every single object will have its own unique tag to help SwiftUI identify, you know, each object uniquely. So that's the best way to think about it. It's just a way for you to enforce uniqueness between objects in a nutshell. So in order to fix this build error, all we need to do is just simply make our struct conform to the hashable protocol like so. That's it. And now you'll see that our build error goes away. So if you have your own models and you want to use this navigation link or navigation destination 4, you need to make sure that they conform to the hashable protocol. Now, similar again, if I actually just like reload the SwiftUI preview, you'll now see that this looks more like what we had before. But if I actually tap on this, nothing is happening, and I'm guessing you can guess why. And the reason why is because obviously before, like I said, you know, this is using the decimal type that it's listing for, but now we're passing through the food type, which isn't the same. So we need to update this to use food. So we're going to change this to be food like so, to be item. Now we're still going to get a build error here because now we're trying to pass in a, you know, item, and also this doesn't exist. So before we had it where I displayed information about that food item. So at this point, all we need to do is update this to use our food detail view and then pass in our item within our food like so. So if we update, and if we try this out in our preview now, you'll now see we're able to actually push through to our food detail view and pass through our food from our navigation link, and it goes to our destination view. And you can see with just a few minor tweaks, we now have it where we have the new APIs working, which look great. So we have it now where we can push through to those screens, but it's not uncommon when you're building your applications that you only push to one type of screen, you know. Now in this case, we're only pushing to one type of screen, which is a food detail view. But what if we want to push to a different type of view? Well, let's see how we can do that. So what I want to do now is I don't want to just be able to push to food. I want to be able to also push to like a drink. What we're going to do now is that within our food, you know, Swift file, we're also going to add in a new struct where you can pass in, you know, drinks and handle that as well. So I'm just going to create a model for drinks now, and then we'll break it down. So you can see here that we actually have some drinks. Well, not some drinks, but a drink model. And this model is not too dissimilar from our food model. The only difference here is that we have this new property here called isFizzy, so we can handle fizzy drinks. Now, the next thing I need to do is actually create a model with some dummy data, which is just going to be an array of these drinks. So you can see here that we've got soda here, we've got bubble tea, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a bubble tea person, but I thought the emoji looked cool, man. I don't like them bubble things that are in it. They just they feel a bit weird when I'm eating them, man. Anyway, we've also got juice as well. Shout outs, apple juice, the best juice. Debate me in the comments if you want it. But we've got our drinks here. So what we want to do now is we want to actually be able to actually push to a screen that, you know, displays some information about these drinks. So what we're going to do now is actually create a section that displays our food and another section that displays our drinks. And if you want to learn more about sections, you guessed it, I've got a video on my channel you can check out. Let's go back into our content view. And where we have our list of foods, let's create another section where we actually have a list of drinks. Okay, cool. So what we have here is a section, you know, with the title foods, and we're just looping through the foods array and doing what we did before. And we're doing a similar thing here for drinks this time, and we're just looping through all the drinks, and then we're just going to, again, use this, you know, view for displaying information on the UI, but we've hit a problem. And the problem that we've got here is that we're trying to pass in a drink, but we set it in the food item view, if I just quickly click into it, that this accepts a food. Now, obviously, this type is not the same as drink. And to be honest with you, I don't want to have to create another view for drinks and also another view for anything else. I just want to reuse this list item view. So we need to find a way to basically make this more reusable and scalable within our app. And this would be a perfect excuse for us to use a protocol. So let's go into our model again, and then at the top of our file, I'm just going to create a protocol and then we'll break it down. So if you look at our protocol here, essentially what it just defines is the same properties that already exist, you know, within our food model and also our drink model as well. So the name, title, description, and price. And for that list view, because we're not displaying whether the drink is a fizzy drink or not, all we're displaying is the name, title, description, all that kind of stuff. We just need these properties. That's all we really care about for that view. So what we want to do now is we need to make our models conform to this protocol, so we can basically say that this food is a menu item and our drink is a menu item. And you'll see that when we refactor our view later on, it makes it more scalable. So let's just make this conform to the menu item protocol. And if we scroll down, we go to our drink and make it conform to the menu item protocol as well. Now, this isn't going to fix our issue completely, because what we need to do is back in our food item view, rather than this being a type food, we actually want this to be a type menu item. So this is going to accept anything that conforms to that protocol. And because we define those properties, we can now access those properties on that protocol. So let's just say here, menu item now, and let's just build this. And you'll now see that it builds fine. What I actually do want to change, so is I actually don't want this whole view to just be for food, because it isn't just for food anymore. This is literally a view now that's going to display a menu item. So what we should do is actually refactor this. So let's refactor the name of this first. So if you just click on this, right click, refactor, and then rename. We want to change the name of this file to be menu item view, like so. And then we also want to change this property now to also be item, because it's not exclusive to just food anymore. So we're going to say item. So now we have a reusable view that can accept any kind of menu item and simply display the price, name, and title. So this is pretty reusable, and we don't have to like keep repeating ourselves. So this is pretty good. And now if you look at our preview, we can now see our drinks and our food. So we just go back to our content view and everything is working as expected. There's no build errors. So if I actually click on the foods, you'll see that it's all good. But if I click on drinks, nothing is happening. So what's going on? Well, essentially, like we said before, this is only listening to the food type. It's not listening to drinks at all. So when you're working with navigation destination 4, you're actually able to have multiple ones which are attached to a view. So after this, what we want to do is add another one in to help us listen for the drink type. So let's say navigation destination 4, and then we're just going to say drink.self. And then for now, we're just going to push to a screen where we display a text like we did before for that drink, and then we'll build a proper view in a second. Okay, cool. So you can see here, we're just having the item, name, and we're just going to set a font on it. So if we go back into our preview and just refresh this, now if we tap on our drinks, you'll see that actually pushes to a screen that shows our drink information. And if we go back and we tap on a food, it pushes to our food detail view that displays information about our food. So this is all working really good. But what I want to do now is I actually want to create a independent view just for drinks to display that is fizzy property. Now I can't refactor this food detail view to do what we did with this menu item view. And the reason why is because the drinks view has some properties that are exclusive to just that data model, such as the is fizzy property. So what we're going to do instead is actually create our own detail view just for the drink. So in this case, it's okay for us to actually create a separate view and duplicate a few things. So let's do that now. And we're going to create a new SwiftUI view called drink detail view. And I'm just going to do a bit of typing and we'll break it down. Similar to what we had before, we just have a list here with a section with the information about the drinks, but the only thing that's different this time is that we're using a label content view, which is also new in iOS 16, to display whether the drink is fizzy or not with like a tick or an X mark. Now, on our preview, we have a build error here, which is expected because it's expecting a drink. So let's just fix this by passing in a dummy drink from our drinks array. So we're just going to say drinks and then subscript to get the first one. So now we should see our drink within our preview when this loads. So if you just click here on drink detail view, you should now see information about the drink, which is what we expect. So our view is now ready to use, and all we need to do is just use this drink detail view back in our content view to actually say push to this screen instead of that text that we defined. So let's go back to our content view. And let's just delete this. And instead, we're going to use our drink detail view instead. And then for our drink, we're just going to pass in our item. Cool. So it compiles. So if we tap on our food, we see our food. There's no is fizzy stuff here because it's not in that view. But if we go to our drinks, you can now see that we've got our is fizzy label and we're able to pass through that drink in here. So this is working fine. And we're able to navigate to two different types. So no meal will be complete without a nice dessert. So what we're going to do now is actually add in another model called dessert and make it hashable and conform to that protocol. So I'm just going to type this out quickly and then briefly go over it. So let's just do that. Okay, cool. So we've added in our models here and you can see that we've got a dessert and it's similar to our other items, except this time we have a independent property here that's exclusive to this model called is cold rather than is fizzy. And also below that, we've just got an array of desserts here. So two elite desserts, we got ice cream and donuts. If you want to add in your own dessert, let me know what desserts you add in the comments below. Yeah, because I want to know, what type of desserts are we working with in this video. So we're just going to update our list now with these desserts. So go back to our content view again, and essentially we're just going to copy this section, except this time just do the same thing for desserts. So now in our preview, we have another section exclusive for desserts. This time again, if you tap on it, so this time again, nothing's gonna happen and we don't need to create an exclusive view for desserts. So I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back, for my nice reusability. What we do need to do is we need to add in another navigation destination specifically for the dessert. So let's do that now. And then we'll just update this to be dessert. And we're going to create a view here called dessert detail view. So let's create that now. So as you can see here, it's pretty similar to our drinks detail view, except this time we have a code bit for whether it's cold or not. And in our previews, we just need to pass in a dummy dessert. So we're just going to say here, desserts, and just access the first one in the array. And then looking at this in our previews here, you can see it's just got its own bit here for cold in a nutshell. So let's go back to my content view and use that view here. So we're just going to say dessert, detail view, and then pass in that item like so. So now when you tap on the dessert in the list, it now goes through to the dessert detail view. Pretty sweet. So we have this all here, and this is all good and all, and we can go to any kind of item. But what about if I had it where I want to actually go to a random food item within the menu? Right now, we don't really have that functionality. So what I want to do is actually add a button here that's going to, when you tap on it, surprise me with one of the items in the menu. So let's do that now. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is add a toolbar onto our UI. So below this navigation destination, we're just going to add in a toolbar and then break it down. So all we've done here is just use the toolbar modifier, and within the toolbar item, I've said that the placement should be a primary action, so the main action within the toolbar. And we just got a button where right now it's not doing anything, but it's just saying surprise me. So surprise me with an item. So right now we've not really done it where we've actually tried to write some code within this button action to programmatically go to an item. But when you're working with NavigationStack, you can actually programmatically push to screens as well. So we can actually bind our navigation stack here to some kind of value, and depending on that value, it will actually trigger our navigation destination and push to that type. So let's see how we can do that now. What we're going to do here is actually define a state property here that actually listens to an array of food. Now, when you're working with NavigationStack and you want to push to a screen programmatically, it's worth noting that the type has to be an array of something that conforms to hashable. And the reason why it needs to be an array is because when you're pushing to screens, it's actually possible to push down through the stack and go like down to 3, 4, 5 different screens. Now in this video, we're only going to be going down one screen, but in the next video, we'll be going down like 2 screens deep and so on and so forth. So we just have an array of food here that we're going to basically push to. And what we can do now is on the navigation stack, if we actually just go to the documentation for navigation stack, you'll see that it actually has a binding where it actually listens to some kind of data or a navigation path that it should, react and push to. So in our case, this is going to be our state property of food. So let's go back into our project. And what we want to say here is we want the path that it should listen to be our array of food, which is declared as a property path here. Now, all we need to do is if we just go down within our button, we just need to write some code to get like a random food item and to try and push to that basically screen. So let's do that now. So all I'm saying here is that within the foods array, just get me a random element and add it into the path array. So this is going to trigger a navigation destination for the food type. So let's test this out now. So if we tap on surprise me, you'll see that it's pushing to random food items. You see here burger. But what happens now if I change this from foods to drink? So when I change this to drinks, it isn't going to work. And the reason why is because our type drink is not an array of food. So the problem that we have here when you use a specific type like this is that you can only push or handle the navigation destination for that specific type. So if you have different types of data, how would you handle it where you need to trigger like any one of these navigation destinations for? And that's where a new type comes in called NavigationPath. Essentially, this navigation path allows us to append any kind of data that conforms to the hashable protocol. And as long as it conforms to the hashable protocol, any of your navigation destinations that are also hashable will get triggered as well. So it allows to push to any kind of data that conforms to hashable. So you want to use this technique when you have one specific type and you only want to push to that type. If you're having to work with different types within your app, I think the word is heterogeneous. That took a lot out of me. But if you have to basically, push to that type, then you want to use what we're about to do now. So what we're going to do is just update this to be a navigation path. And you'll see that when you declare this as a navigation path, the syntax is a bit different. So under the hood, this is some kind of collection, but when you initialize it, it's just an object that holds the collection of hashable objects. So now if we just scroll down, you'll see that we actually don't have that error anymore. And if I actually now refresh this preview and tap on surprise me, you'll see that this also works for our drinks. And if I was to update this to desserts, you'll see that it also works for our desserts as well. So now we're able to pass in any kind of hashable object and our navigation destination will figure out what that type is that we've registered for and navigate to that view, which is pretty sweet. Now, right now, I'm having to change this property from, dessert, drinks, and food. I don't really want to do that. I just want to have it where I have all the possible data models and just push to that screen. So all three of them in one go here. So what we're going to do now is actually change this to actually handle an array of hashable objects, and then it will just select a random item from that hashable array and just push to it. So let's do that now. So what I've just done here is we've just got an array of, like I said before, any kind of hashable object, and this any means that it could be any type as long as it conforms to hashable essentially. And we're just creating a foods collection. We're just adding in the foods, drinks, and desserts. So this is a way for you to basically combine different collections of arrays into one flat array if you didn't know how to do this. And this is just going to select a random item from this flat list of these hashable objects and then append it into the navigation path that we defined before. So what should happen is we're now able to basically trigger any one of these three. So let's try this out now. So if you tap on surprise me, you can see falafel. Again, we can now see ice cream and pizza. And if you keep on tapping it, you'll see that you'll get like a drink, as you can see now. So we can go to any one of these. So that's pretty sweet. So if you just need to basically push to any kind of screen and you don't really care about accessing the type, you just want to have different types of data, then use navigation path. But if you actually do need to be able to manipulate the stack and you need to know the type, then you gotta hard code it to a specific type. And in future videos within this course, I'm going to show you how to use enums so you can actually handle that and manipulate the stack as well. Now, before we actually wrap up this video, what I just want to do is to show you what this looks like on an iPad. So if we change this from an iPhone to one of the iPads, you'll see that this actually looks the exact same as our iPhone, except basically just blown up. And you might be wondering, why have you not got like the sidebar and all that kind of stuff? Well, the reason being is that when you work with NavigationStack, you basically just get a stack, which is what the name implies. To get the sidebar and all that other stuff, you need to use a navigation split view, which is something we'll look into when we're looking at adding multi-platform support into our, applications. So you can see here, it works the exact same. It's just that it's like a blown up version of our iPhone. And even if I change the orientation, you'll see it just, works the same. Cool. So to make sure that you don't miss that, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also, hit the notification bell so you get updates whenever, I release that video. So that's everything in this video. I hope you learned a lot about how to update your apps about NavigationStack, how Navigation Link works, Navigation Destination, and also as well the new NavigationPath API. So if you enjoy my teaching style, I actually do have, more courses on my channel that you can check out as well. And if you, want to support me with some kind of monetary value, I really do appreciate it. On YouTube, you can actually leave donations now with a little thanks button in the corner, as well as you could buy me a coffee on coffee.com. I actually do have a membership as well, which comes from with some pretty cool badges, I'm not gonna lie. So you can get some pretty cool badges and, help support me so I can keep doing, which is something which I love doing, which is teaching people, iOS development and just teaching in general. I like supporting other people and teaching in general. Now, if you don't want to support me with any monetary value, that's perfectly fine. It's okay. But what you can do to help me out for free is actually share this video, comment, like, subscribe, and hit notification bell to get updates for whenever I release a new video. I just want to say a big thank you to all my YouTube members. I see you. Don't worry, man. I do see y'all. And I really appreciate the support that you give me to allow me to keep on doing this as well. So that's everything from me. I'll catch you on a bit. Deuces.